Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar exploring the concept of the 52 cups of coffee. We have a nice group joining us this afternoon, and really excited to hear from some of our community foundation partners across the state about their plans to implement the 52 cups of coffee this year. Or excuse me, in the new year. So we wanted to take some time to just do a little bit of refresh on the concept that was presented at the Connect conference and share some ideas that we've brainstormed with Stacy Van Gorp, who was our initial presenter of the idea at Connect, and also to share some tools and resources with you. So I'm going to keep everyone muted, and then when we have our speakers toward the end of the webinar today, I'll unmute those folks. So please feel free to use the chat box function through the Zoom platform to submit any questions, and I'll be sure that I ask the presenters those questions at the end of our time together. But I'll be keeping everyone in mute to avoid any background noise since we have such a large group. So again, just a quick refresh, we'll revisit the conversation goals and strategies for using this 52 cups of coffee model. We'll share some tools and resources, and then we'll hear some ideas from 3 of your peer organizations across the state. So this concept was presented during Stacy's session at the Connect conference that was reflecting back on 15 years of good work through the County Endowment Fund program and thinking through how we can become even stronger and more strategic in implementing the County Endowment Fund program, but more broadly, effective community foundation work in the state. And one of Stacy's lessons was don't wait to make good, and to really be out and active and engaged in our communities in a variety of different ways. And she used this graphic or model to help explain 3 different strategies that can really work together to help make good in philanthropy. So those are understand, respond, and ignite. Stacy then went on to share some additional strategies in each of those areas and some ideas for folks to consider. And we were really pleasantly surprised with how well the 52 cups of coffee concept resonated with the group. We actually ended up funding 6 idea implementation grants for community foundations to implement that project specifically. And we just thought it would be helpful before we move into the new year and before folks start implementing that concept to share some thinking around how to make those conversations as fruitful as possible, and how to really take all of that information back and use it for the good of your community foundation and really the good of your community and county. So there are some other ideas from this slide from Stacy's presentation. So I think some of these lessons can apply to some of these other strategies as well. So feel free to think about these ideas in terms of the 52 cups of coffee concept, but also more broadly, how you're out engaging with your community partners and seeking to understand where they want you to be spending your time and what they think are important things in your community. So before you set out on your 52 cups of coffee journey, we thought it would be helpful for you to pause and ask this question, really, what's your why? So what is the reason you are implementing this concept in your county and what you're really hoping to gain from it? So there are a variety of reasons that we think you might do this, and we read in idea implementation grant proposals about why people are doing this. So sort of answering this question is a really good place to start. You might be interested in connecting with other community leaders and other organizations to better understand community or county projects that are coming up that you may be able to partner on. You might be seeking to build relationships with current or prospective donors. You might be interested in educating your community about your work. You might want to plant some seeds about some new ideas or concepts that you are interested in exploring as a community foundation, or some issue areas that you have identified as priorities to talk with folks about those. You may use it as a strategy to roll out a new program or project. Maybe you've newly adopted a strategic plan and want to share some of those goals and strategies with your community so they better understand your work. Or you might choose to use this as an opportunity to celebrate a specific milestone for your community foundation. We know that we've been celebrating the 15th anniversary of the County Endowment Fund program, and this is the 15th year of that grant making happening in many counties. So that could be a great thing to sort of center these conversations around as you reach out and connect with community leaders and donors across your county. So just make sure you have the why in mind as you design your strategy. And we think that that really helps to focus the conversation and also gives you something to sort of wrap your invitation around so folks know why you're reaching out. We think this is an excellent idea, of course, for staff to engage with community members, but this is also a really simple way to get board members and affiliate members engaged in this outreach as well. So we know that these are a variety of the roles that board members play. They work on identifying prospects and introducing folks to your community foundation. They practice their elevator speeches and stories. They often are out in the community connecting with folks and bringing information back to your board. They send thank you notes and help steward your donors. And of course, they help support donor cultivation. And we really think that the 52 cups of coffee concept, if done well, can help board members really exercise all of these board role functions and help potentially help them feel more comfortable in meeting with folks when you perhaps follow up in making an ask for your community foundation. So it really can be good practice to get especially new board members out in front of folks talking about your mission and really giving them a chance to hear from the community so they're using that informed lens as they make decisions at their community foundation board seat. We also know that that board members are really important messengers in their communities, and board members play a few specific key roles in being effective messengers of this great mission and work that you're sharing. They're positioned to build relationships with folks. They often have good visibility in their community and across the county. They provide credibility for your work, and they also create awareness and also help to build connections maybe with folks who are not already connected to your mission. So this is a really great thing to have your board and your affiliate volunteers engaged in. And you may even consider sending a staff member and a board member to these coffee conversations in teams, and folks can really engage in the conversation together and then also have a chance to sort of sit back and listen. So that's just a little bit of context for how you can think about the 52 cups of coffee concept. And we also wanted to share a few tools and resources that we've pulled together, and I'll share all of these things in a follow-up note along with the webinar recording following our time together today. So just a quick list that we have brainstormed to help you think beyond sort of the usual donor prospects. The intention of this outreach is not to solicit funds. It's not to make donation asks. It's really to have conversation and have your ears open to listen to folks about what they are seeing and thinking about in their communities. So we encourage you to think beyond folks who are already within your community foundation's network and donor base and connect with those who may not be as familiar with your mission. So some ideas are elected officials, business leaders, leaders in higher education institutions in your area, of course, nonprofit leaders, perhaps grantees, and maybe even organizations that have applied and not received funding from your organization, leaders in the faith community, healthcare providers, and of course, always encourage folks to connect with younger people in their communities, be that young professionals or perhaps leaders in a youth philanthropy group in your county as well. We did put together some sample invitation language that you could send to the folks that you want to meet with. So I'll share this with you. It's pretty simple and straightforward, and you can customize it as you see fit to meet your needs. But thought that that would be helpful to have as a template to share out with your board members who are maybe going to be conducting these visits. We also put together some sample questions to ask. Stacy Van Gorp had shared that she did this with her board of directors a few years ago when she was at the McElroy Trust, and they went on a few visits and didn't have questions sort of prepared to guide the conversation, and decided to draft some of those up so the board members could have those sort of in their pocket to help guide the conversation. So you may consider picking a few of these. Again, going back to what's your why? What are you really looking to get out of these conversations, and what information do you want to take back to your community foundation board to really make this actionable long term? So some samples: what are your favorite things to do in your community, or what's your favorite thing about your community? If you could make one dream a reality in your community, what would it be? What are your favorite places, spaces, and people in our community? What do they do to make it special? All of these things really help to bring out the positive things about our communities, so your board can then think about how to enhance those things. If you ask questions specifically around what folks think the greatest needs are in your community, it could quickly turn into more of a negative conversation. So we would encourage you to keep these conversations focused in a positive way to have really fruitful and productive discussions with these community members. We also suggest that you consider what leave behind materials you'd like to take with you to the meetings. Of course, we'd suggest that you don't focus on those materials during the meetings, really spend that time listening to the person you're with, but it could be nice to have something to leave them with to keep the community foundation on their mind, or perhaps it could be something that they later respond to, perhaps a card that they send back into your community foundation. We'll see a sample of that in a few moments here. It might be a way for you to collect information from those folks, maybe get them on your e-distribution lists. And you may already have some materials like your most recent newsletter or brochure or annual report that you could take with to leave with the folks after you've met with them as well. Again, just a reminder, the intention when Stacy presented this idea is not that these meetings are to solicit gifts, but they're really to plant seeds, to hear from community members, and to then think about how you can use that information back in your communities as well. The final resource that we'll share with you is a tracking spreadsheet. So it's just a very simple thing, but it is helpful to share this with board members when they're going out on visits with folks. It's a place where you can keep track of all the visits and all the touches that you've had, and also a place where you can collect information about any follow-up items or questions that you need to circle back on with folks that you've met with. And it can be a place where you maybe start building a prospective donor or board member pipeline, gauging their interest in the conversation and the questions that they asked, and then recording that all in one place so you have that to reflect back on. This would be a great thing to track throughout the year and then revisit at the end of the year after you've had those 52 conversations. And of course, all of this, again, can be really good training and practice for board members if you're preparing to launch a more formal endowment building campaign or fundraising strategy in your county or your community as well. So with that, I am going to invite four, I guess, of your peers to share a little bit about the strategies that they have developed to implement their ideas. Each of them received idea implementation grant funding. And as we reviewed the proposals, it was really interesting to see how people made this their own and are thinking about it as a way to further some work that they maybe already had going on in their community foundation, or as a way to plant some seeds and ideas for things that they know will be coming up in the future for their community foundation as well. So first, we are going to hear from Mary Jo Gothard and Katie Decker from the Community Foundation of Jackson County, which is an affiliate of the Community Foundation of Greater Dubuque. And they are going to talk with us about their program. I just need one moment here to find them in my list and get them unmuted. Give me just 1 second here. Katie and Mary Jo, are you there?
Are you able to hear us, Terry?
Oh, great. There you are. Yes, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting us to participate. Katie and I, we kind of partnered on this grant proposal, and we were so pleased when we received the funding to go ahead with it. We really like the idea of the 52 cups of coffee because we are in Jackson County. Our roles have changed a little bit in the fact that I am the executive director and have been for a while, but because I've cut back on a few duties and hours, Katie is helping me with the nonprofit work in Jackson County. So we decided to partner on this grant, and Katie, being the nonprofit person, is going to take 26 cups of coffee, and I will take the other 26 cups. She will be the nonprofit person, I will be the donor person. And that's not to say we won't team up on our meetings, but we thought it would be a great way for Katie to have a one-on-one with the nonprofits in Jackson and really get to know each of them, get to know each other better.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were thinking going forward. So in those 26 cups of coffee each, 52 cups of coffee, you know, Mary Jo and I kind of thought about who we would meet with, and especially in small communities in Jackson County, a lot of times our donors and our nonprofit folks and our board members are really all kind of the same group. So a lot of times if I'm meeting with a nonprofit partner, Mary Jo is talking to them about, you know, donor stewardship type things. I'm talking with them about nonprofits. We thought specifically about one gentleman in our county who is a donor, is a scholarship fund holder, is a nonprofit leader, is a board member.
He was he started the board.
Yeah, is a founding board member. So these folks are really interconnected. So we kind of said, if we really want to kind of respond to our nonprofits, respond to our donors in our county, and then really understand their ideas and kind of ignite their ideas going forward, kind of those three things, we really need to understand kind of where they're at and where their work is going to. So that's kind of what we're thinking about when we're thinking about meeting these folks, is really understanding what's happening in the county and then sharing the Community Foundation of Jackson County message and sharing that we are kind of there to partner with them, understand their work going forward, and really supporting each other going forward.
Right, and what can we do to help them?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you both so much. I love that you're utilizing the time as a way also to introduce Katie as a new staff contact for the region. So that's an idea to consider if you have new folks working in your area or partnering in your affiliate regions. It can serve as an introductory conversation for those folks as well. Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing. Our next peer who will be sharing is Megan McKenzie, and she is a board member for the Foundation for the Future of Delaware County. So I'll go ahead and get Megan unmuted here. And
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
You're great. Okay, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Well, I am, as Carrie said, a board member and a newer board member to the Foundation for the Future of Delaware County as well, and had the opportunity to attend Connect with a few other board members, and just thank ICOF for this opportunity to share our ideas today, but also for the grant to further this work. So in Delaware County, where we're located, there are 11 communities where we're dividing, thinking through, okay, we've got 11 communities in our county. We have our board members. Several of our board members are from some of those communities. So ideally, we would kind of divide up our board members where they're from and have them be the lead person in their community, along with one of the other FFDC staff, to have these conversations, likely in a small group setting. We thought, and I was happy to see your list of ideas of folks that we should invite to have these cups of coffee, because we thought, you know, a donor would be a great person, an elected official, have a couple of informal leaders, maybe a banker or somebody who's in economic development in each community, and kind of lead it as a small group conversation, starting with what has been the history and the impact of FFDC, to share our message for those who may not know that some of the projects and programs and things that have been funded by our organization have happened because of, you know, because of the work of our foundation. And to learn more, one of our other big questions or things we want to learn more about, because our goal and our why is to assess which of these 11 communities could be kind of the pilot for raising unrestricted money to start their own endowment. And we don't know necessarily the answer to that question, and so we want to kind of learn and have these cups of coffee be the excuse to get us into these communities, learning more about what they've already done and what they have capacity for. So another piece or question we're going to ask are, what are some of the most robust community efforts that have happened over the last 5 or 10 years? Tell us about that. What did it take to get there? Who are the people who are involved? So really using it as an opportunity to learn, and then from there, you know, hopefully we have our plan laid out and see that we could have our coffee completed by about early April. And to do this, our board, all including myself, will be trained by the staff. We have a great staff who supports FFDC, and we have on the calendar a training for later in January to have us all, you know, have these talking points of what our impact has been, what this could look like for these different communities, and really get these community leaders to dream a bit too, and say, you know, it's 2020. What does this year look like for your community? What are the things that you would love to see here? And we need to, you know, expand our capacity as a board to be able to do that. So we're going to do a training with the full board, kind of come up with our list of people, divide our cups of coffee by groups of 5 or groups of 10. Groups of 10 is really, I think, too big. We think 5 to 6 would be kind of the magic number, and then have a board member and then a staff member there as well to, you know, be the recorder, kind of document how the conversations are going and support leading the conversation. And then early spring, we'd really come back and see, okay, what would be the next piece for what community is ready, and then go into, I won't get into the details about the funds and how we would match it and kind of those pieces, but really our purpose is to see and evaluate who is ready for unrestricted endowment and what is it that we need to learn about each community. So I think that's what I have, Carrie. I don't want to ramble on, so I'm cutting myself off.
That's great, Megan. I love how you've paired it with something that you already had planned and sort of in the works for your community foundation. So it's really complementary to that work as well. So thanks for sharing how those strategies have aligned.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, very good. We're going to turn now to our final peer who will be sharing, and that is Shannon Harper with the South Central Iowa Community Foundation. And Shannon has been an absolute rock star since they were awarded this funding through Idea Implementation Grants. Their program has already hit the ground running. So I've asked her to share a little bit how they've structured it, some of what they've been learning, and any advice that she might have for those of you as you look to get started on this in the new year. So I'm unmuting Shannon now, and I'll turn it over to you, Shannon.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you so much for inviting me to speak today about this. It made it really exciting for our foundation to be get a shout out like that, and we really appreciate this grant. It has Stacy Stevens and I, she's our grant manager, she and I had been brainstorming of ways to just to bring more awareness to our foundation, to help our board members connect with people within our counties. We are South Central Iowa Community Foundation is made up of 5 counties and 3 affiliates. So there's 8 total counties, and we're in rural areas, obviously in southern Iowa. We had kind of had an idea about trying to make a connection with something like baked goods. That's something that's, just friendly, warm, inviting, it's not an ask, obviously. It's very non-confrontational. But when we came to connect, it really resonated with us that don't wait to make good. That just kept rolling around in my head. And we talked about these cookies and what goes better with cookies than coffee. So when we wrote for this, our why was actually kind of maybe a prequel to the 52 cups of coffee more than anything, was we knew that we needed to build our stewardship. We really needed to engage and connect with our donors and just our grantees and our nonprofits, and within all of our communities within South Central. So we also wanted to build and strengthen those relationships. We have over 25 board members, and a lot of them are new. Some of them have been with us quite a while, but we also have new ones, and having them all have the same elevator speech and understand our purpose and our mission. We've been working really hard on that. We've purchased new software, and we've thrown a lot of things at them of how things are going to change this year with a new granting process. So we thought we'd just make it really simple and make the process about just simply saying thank you. So we've been sending out, our board members out armed with cookies that we've branded, and cards that ask if you could have one wish for your community, what would it be? So we're gathering wishes and we're telling them thank you. And on the back side of the postcard, we made a postcard for them to put in their name, address, phone number, and email. We are using this to help build our database for marketing purposes and for our newsletter, and to help with invitations to upcoming events. But we also added a little bonus, one for our board members and one for our for the people that we share these with, is that we will do a drawing, that if they mail these in, we're going to do a drawing for $500. They get to choose what food pantry that $500 goes to in their community. And if in our area, that is a really big deal. So we're hoping to get a lot of these cards back in. We can update all of our information that way. So that was a real big plus. But also the wishes, we're planning to do something with those also as we revamp our granting process, so that we can kind of have something to talk to these people about when we go back to them. But I like how you said that about not making the ask. That took the pressure off our board. Through this process, they have learned that it's helped educate the new board members of what we do. It's helped them work on their elevator speeches and also realize what they didn't know. So it's brought up them not knowing some of our donors and who they are. I think sometimes you've been with something for a while, you just assume know the process. So it's kind of brought up some questions about that. And our granting. We are also the understanding the needs and just gathering the information through those wishes. We will also maybe kind of get some other information that we need well, I said to connect, I guess. It also is helping, I think, in our communities build a sense of just dreaming of what we can have. I mean, when you ask someone if they could have one wish for the community, you'd be surprised what we're getting on some of the cards. And I like that. I think that that kind of makes it bigger than us. And it shows that we're really just trying to be that convener and connect people. So I'm excited about that. One of the other things that came out of this that I think probably that Stacy and I probably are seeing is that don't wait to make good. Going to the Connect conference, this was put together super quick. The day that I started handing out the cookies to our board, was at a board meeting. They approved it. They approved the $500 to the food pantries an hour before it. So I actually had to print the cards, not knowing for sure if it'd be approved. Literally I had to print everything myself. So it's not super professional. It's just, I mean, it's not like professionally printed. It was printed in my office, but we didn't wait to make good. We wanted to get it done. We wanted to get it out there because we want to do the 52 cups of coffee throughout the year and continue to do that stewardship so that when we make that ask, we already have that relationship built and we have put in the important part of building that relationship and not just, being being the another person out there asking them for money, because I feel like that's something that they, hear a lot from different groups. So we're their partner. So that's pretty much. I did also, maybe the thing I left out is that we're doing 1,000 cookies. So it's 1,000 cards, 1,000 cookies. I know that's a big ask and I don't expect to get that many back, but just the process of doing it has really taught our board a lot, I think, and us as well. So.
Wow, you're asking people to dream big. I think you've been dreaming big with 1,000 cookies. For sharing that, Shannon. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I am curious, could you share a couple of the wishes and ideas that have come back in?
We've had some wishes that, for simple things, just for some things that we already knew that were going into our community. But we've had, I know locally, there's been some, the use of an old building, what to do with some ideas to go into that. Something that maybe we wouldn't have really thought of as a foundation because it's not getting a lot of attention at this, at this time. We've got information on, I got a wish about building partnerships with other nonprofits. I thought that was a really cool one because obviously that's something that we really want to be a part of, and to have somebody, to know that there's somebody out there asking for that. We know that there's a real need, and so we definitely want to take part in that. So those are two of the really the ones that come to mind that stood out to me.
Great, excellent. Thanks for sharing, Shannon. And I think the other really cool thing about this concept of the card and collecting people's name and contact information and an idea that they have is if there is an idea that comes in from these cards and it gets another board member excited or the entire board excited or a donor excited, you can then reach back out and re-engage that person who submitted the card and really start to build some collective power around these ideas and concepts that are being brought forward. And that really gets back to the not waiting to make good piece and igniting people or ideas in your community to make really cool things happen in that community leadership space. So I love that this really capitalizes on that opportunity, and appreciate you sharing that, Shannon. Okay, very good. Well, that is really the end of our content and our speakers that we've put together. I will, again, redirect you to the Zoom chat function if anyone has any questions that they'd like to submit, or if any of you on the webinar that received funding through this IDEA implementation grant for the 52 Cups of Coffee has something that you've been working on that you'd want to share, please feel free to submit it there and I can share it with the group. While I give folks a moment to do that, I did just want to remind people that we have several funding opportunities through the year for community foundations to access funds to take some of these ideas and put them into action. So if you did not receive IDEA implementation grant funding for this concept, you may consider applying for a capacity building grant to support a larger donor development strategy and endowment building strategy in your community. Those grants will become available in February, so please be sure to check our website and we will get that grant guideline and information posted there in February. Also, a reminder of our first webinar and peer learning opportunity in 2020. It will be February 11th, which is a Tuesday at 10 a.m. We're partnering with Stacy Van Gorp to have her elaborate a little bit more on one of the lessons that she shared at Connect. Her time really just ran short during Connect, so we wanted to make sure she had an opportunity to present all of the great information she had compiled for the lesson that is treat your grant seekers like you treat your donors. So it's really focused on effective grant making practice and strategy in your community. So please plan to join us for that. And we hope, again, with that webinar being recorded, that it can be a tool that you use maybe in an ongoing way to facilitate conversations with your boards and affiliate community foundations as well. I did receive one note, and that was to please share the slides. Just a reminder, I will be sharing the slides, recording to the webinar, and also those resources and tools, all of those documents that we've pulled together. We'll include that in a follow-up note. And with that, I think I'll go ahead and conclude our webinar for the day and wish everyone a happy holiday, and we'll talk to you in 2020. Take care. Bye-bye.